Is there honour amongst thieves? Let's find out in this story. Hello and welcome to the Battle and Barrow and another D&D waffle session. Before we get going, you may have noticed during these waffle sessions the footage is taken from the game. Last year I think I tried to do a whole playthrough that I was going to give to patrons, but it sort of didn't work out because we didn't really want our faces on camera and what have you. Whereas now I've got the cameras set up for just filming the board action. I'm going to retry that again for Patreon members. So this whole episode, this story, will be up for patrons. I should warn you that my players might swear during it. Not a lot, but there might be the odd bit of swearing. Nothing too serious, the odd F word, maybe the S word kind of thing. So just that as a heads up. But I will be putting it up for patrons to listen to. Now, this story is basically Anirafol wants to join the Thieves Guild in Port Blacksand, and this is his trial, his test, so he can become a master thief. I wrote this and I based it on the Midnight Rogue, the fighting fantasy game. Based it upon, inspired by, but yeah. So I've based a trial on this. So readers of Fighting Fantasy, particularly this book, might you recognise it? Really, I perhaps should have edited it down a bit. This turned out to be one of our longest play sessions. If you watch Patreon members, if you watch the actual full playthrough, you'll notice that's 5.5 hours. And that's with 2 or 3 breaks in between. So yeah, we're playing really on the table for about 6.5 hours. I should have edited some bits down. But ho-hum, yeah. So if you're interested in seeing the whole full Let's Play of it, yeah, head over to the Patreon and you can watch it there. It should be available probably by the time this goes up. Maybe patrons may have even got it already. I don't know. Anyway, let's get on with the waffle. Okay, so the first thing we do, and this is probably where I should have edited down, if you like, is we had I wanted to do a bit of roleplay downtime. So before we get going to the adventure, I wanted to give my players a chance to sort of explore Blacksand a bit, so to get familiar with what's available, what shops are there. They wanted a few bits anyway. Now, if we had more time, which, well, as I said, 6.5 hour session, but I would have just waved this way and gone, yeah, you've bought this, you bought this, you bought this, if we already knew the town, but I didn't. So we role-played this. So we went to, they wanted healing potions, so we went to Dietrich the Alchemist, and we sort of role-played that out. He's a interesting character, that he's kind of not very good at his job. His beard is all singed where he keeps burning it, trying to make potions. And so, yeah, they go there, they buy some healing potions and a few other potions, try their roguish skills out. I think Anirafol, they wanted a potion of haste, and they're really expensive, so he did a bit of naughtiness where he sleight of hand and cast minor illusion to make it look like he was buying a healing potion when he was taking the potion of haste, potion of speeds, which he did. So things like that were fun. They left. As they were leaving, one of Anirafol's irregulars run up to him and said that Jasper wants to see them under the Singing Bridge, so they go and see Jasper. He's invented like he did with the acid arrow, he's now come up with a water arrow. He's got one as a prototype that he gives to Walker the ranger. This could douse out any sort of brazier type fire. Players of the Thief video games might see where I'm going with this ranger character. Basically turn him into the Garrett, really. If we're in an urban environment, we need to make sure the ranger is still doing well. So yeah, I'm going to turn him into Garrett, hopefully give him all the tools he needs. Well, it's up to obviously Walker, the player, to do what he wants, but I'm giving him tools and stuff to keep him interested. Gelfen we don't do it this session, but she's sort of thinking about joining the Wizards Guild here, because it is separate from the School of Magic up north, and there's a couple of countries in between, but obviously because her background is she was a member of the School of Magic, decided that a book they had was not for human hands and stole it. So she doesn't want to obviously be tracked down. She's thinking of joining that, maybe with some false documentation and what have you. But we left it there. That was for next session. Even at this stage, this took quite some time. We were almost an hour into our game just doing this sort of thing and doing a few other bits and pieces before we actually started our adventure. Now, our adventure proper starts in one of the Thieves Guild buildings. There are many of these buildings scattered around the noose, where Rannoch, a master thief, announces the trial and what it involves, asking if any other Thieves Guild members have any objections and what have you. So basically the trial is our players need a merchant called Coprul. Maid Coprul has acquired the Eye of the Basilisk. Now readers of the Midnight Rogue may sort of recognise this as Brass's role, but we've killed Brass off already in our game, so it's another merchant called Mead Coprul. Now Mead and Coprul are two words that both mean copper. I think Mead is Czech for copper and Coprul is Romanian for copper, so his name is basically copper. Just an interesting aside, sort of play on the fact that it was Brass originally. So yeah, they've got to steal the Eye of the Basilisk. They need to do some information gathering, some stealing, and then retrieve the eye. It's dusk now and they have until dawn to do it, so there's a time frame. The only information they're given is Coprul's symbol, his merchant symbol, is that of a copper coin. And with that, they also are not allowed to take any equipment except for their weapons and armor, and they're not allowed to take any money. That all has to remain here. This is to demonstrate their actual resourcefulness as well. So yeah, and that is what happens. They leave there and head out into the noose. They head out into the noose, and from where they are, they can see some points of interest. They can see there's beggars around the streets. They can see the Rat and Ferret Inn, and there is also Madame Star, the Clairvoyant. So the first thing that they decide to do, and Nerifro is taking the lead on it, being it's his trial, but they're working as a group. But the first thing they decide to do is try and speak to a beggar or one of Nerifro's irregulars that he's got set up, one of the young boys. So he make a perception check, and they find one up a street alley. It is Bargo the Wheeler, and he's in the Midnight Rogue, but he was a old beggar in this. I transformed into a young lad who lost his legs in a car accident when a cart ran over them and they had to be amputated. So now he trundles around in a little cart, and they get some information from him, and they get the sort of location of roughly where Coprul lives. The symbol is a coin, and after some dealings, some of which I don't want to mention because it's yeah, if you're interested more in that, what happened, see the Patreon video. But yeah, that was basically a bit of underhanded dealing on Nerifro's part, where Bargo had 2 silver pieces in his pot, and Nerifro goes to make it look like he's dropping. He basically pickpockets the pot and then gives him 2 coins, which making him think that he's got 4 gold, silver, and now he only has 2. But yeah, anyway, Wheeler also gives them a grapnel and rope, so that might come in useful. Obviously, it's no good to him, being he is a disabled person and can't really climb using it. Well, I suppose he could, but that's that. Next up, they go to the Rat and Ferret. In there, they speak to the landlord, who is a big bear of a man, and it is a bit of thief cant going on, and Nerifro recognises him as a member of the Thieves Guild. There's wink wink nudge nudge type things going on with thief cant symbols being drawn with beer, and they get some more information, such as Coprul has a really secure safe in his house that needs 2 keys. One of the keys is always upon his person, even when he sleeps. They look around as a group of people playing Spossel, but they realise they're not going to get any information out of them, and so they head back into the night. Now, here they don't go to Madame Star, even though I mentioned it in a sort of bit early on. The only bit of information she gets there, she read their fortune and tell them they would need to visit a place of work. and a place of business. I've already I didn't sort of push this because they'd already guessed they're going to have to go to the Merchants Guild and poke around there to get some information and go into Copel's office and then break into his house. Being it's still quite early, they come to the conclusion that he's still going to be awake, so they won't go to his house yet. They'll do that when he's asleep. So they'll go to the Merchants Guild, which everyone should be out of hours. As they're walking across the market square, sort of sticking to the shadows, they're being really cautious all the way through this. They notice some trees rustling in the trees in the middle of the market square. They send sort of Newton and the Nim the homunculus because they can fly and get a good vantage without them risking their lives. And they see something strange. They see basically a pack of ghouls feasting upon a dead beggar. They have no part in this, which is good because this is another encounter I could have cut out to save time, but luckily we didn't spend too much time on this. What they do instead is they see a patrol of guard coming their way on the other side of the square. So normally what would happen is at this time of night I'm treating it like a true medieval city where it's basically a curfew. But with this, they say they're just making their way home to the guards. That's what I say to the guards. They're just making their way home, but they've discovered something sinister in the trees. The guards go and investigate it, at which point the ghouls attack. They call more guards. I mean, basically pull all the guard patrols in the vicinity away to that area, leaving them more free to move about in this area, luckily. So with that, they head to the Merchants Guild. They spy a guard still, which is part of the Merchants Guild and not the town guard, on the door, guarding the door. So they look for other entrances. They head round the back. They can see a drain pipe that they could potentially climb up. There's some gargoyles at the top they could swing a grapnel hook round, but there's also a back door, which they try, it's not trapped, and it's unlocked, which is weird. So they tentatively open the door. Inside, they hear snoring, and they come across a beggar who says he sort of broke in looking for a place to sleep because there's some strangeness going on at night. He's obviously encountered the ghouls. They thank him, leave him alone, and he gives them some. So they now begin searching the ground floor of the Merchants Guild. They see they come out, and there is sort of a hallway as they leave this room, and there is the front door, which they gather. Luckily, there is no window in the front door, so they can move about somewhat with ease without the guards seeing them. There are 3 other doors here and some stairs leading. 2 other doors here and some stairs leading up. One of the doors has a symbol of a map on. This is Mr. Nibbs, the cartographer. And another door has a needle and thread on. This is Elton's sons, the tailors. They decide not to worry about those. They are focused on the mission at hand because there is a time limit. So they work their way upstairs, which they come to a spacious hallway. There is a skylight in the ceiling of this place, giving some moonlight so they can see a bit. And they also ascertain they could have come in through the roof. They climbed the drain pipe or used a grapnel, but they're in, so they're happy. There's also a rug on the floor, which they avoid like the plague. Remembering last time I used a rug, it was a trap. But I've made loads of new rugs if you've seen the Halloween video, so I wanted to use this for this sort of. I knew I was going to be moving into urban encounters, so I called that the haunted house tile set, but really it's just any indoor manor house or situation like this. So, but in this case they were right to avoid it because it was trapped. They would stand on it and a panel would open and Sturges would go into the room. Now Ranger already has PTSD for the rugs and he has PTSD for Sturges. It would have been his worst nightmare, but they avoid it and stick to the walls and looking at the doors. There are 3 doors up here. There are a symbol with a fish on it. This is Silas Whitebait room, and there is a symbol with a candle on, and this is Galar Aerophim, the candle maker, and the other one is a coin. This is Copel's room, and so they pick the lock to this room and open it, and they find themselves in a well-appointed office. There is a rug, there is a desk and a nice chair in front of the desk, padded nice leather chair, and the other end of the room there is an iron door. The first thing they do is search the desk and look for drawers. There are 3, 2 are locked. The first drawer doesn't have anything of interest, but they pick the locks, and something interesting happens here, because even though it's a ranger, he is specing himself to be a roguish ranger, or he had done throughout the game, so he's got picklocking proficiency. So they have a pick-off between Walker and Anirafol. Anyway, it's just a fun aside. It's amazing how your players themselves can make interesting the adventure interesting rather than just you as a DM creating it. So I really enjoyed watching this unfold during this session. Anyway, inside they find a key marked with an L, some coins totaling 10 gold pieces, and a deed of purchase showing that Coprul had recently bought a piece of land called Barrow Hill, and there is a letter from the wizard. There we go. Smooshed the word letter and wizard up and come up with lizard. There you go. A letter from the wizard Branitus saying that he has refitted Barrow Hill as per Coprul's instructions. The iron door is locked. It's real heavy duty lock. But they do manage to pick it in the end with a bit of trouble, because this is putting the thief's skills to the test. Inside, they see some storage boxes and 3 stout chests. They begin to check them for traps. I don't see anything outwardly unusual about the chest until one of the chests bursts into life. It's a mimic. I had to use a mimic. We're not very Mystarian, I don't believe, but I wanted to use a mimic, so I'm using a mimic. And yes, I think Gelfenwith at this got really panicked. I don't know why, but she really panicked, and she was going to use a real high level fire spell at this thing, because she was just in full panic mode, and the other 2 players are sort of screaming, no, don't do this, you're going to burn all the sort of information in this room, you're going to just destroy everything we want to look at, it's all paperwork and notes and ledgers in here, and they want to rush through it to get information, and they managed to talk her down just at the last minute before she was about to unleash all manner of fireball spells, and in the end they just fight in conventional means, defeat it and look through the thing. They find what they do find is a silver whistle with a bat engraved on it, probably worth about 2 gold, and I think Anirafol pockets that. But as they begin rushing through things, Gelfenwith is outside this small little room at this point. The door slams shut behind them, trapping Walker and Anirafol in this room. They begin to search around and don't find any locks. Gelfenwith can't open the door. She's not good at picking locks whatsoever. There is a moment of panic here, and then calmly Anirafol begins to look around looking for something in there, and then you see thief cant on a brick with the word open. He sort of pokes around the brick and realizes it's loose. He pulls the brick away. In there's a lever which he pulls, and the door swings open. Apart from that, there's not a lot else in this room. The only thing in here really was the whistle. And the rest of them contain, well, to them it's mundane paperwork. To the merchant it's probably quite important. It's all his wheelings and dealings and what have you, but to them it's not that important to the quest at hand. So with that, they head back out into the night and dodge their way to Coprul's house. There is a guard encounter that they used the homunculus to sort of lead the guards away by getting him to be on the roof making noises, clearing the path so they can get to the house. Looking around the house, they can see there is a front door. There are no other doors. There is some windows up the top, and one room has some barred windows. They ascertain that's probably going to be a study or something important, so that's the room they want to head to. So they pick the lock to the front door and enter. The door doesn't prove too much of a challenge for them. And it enters. They're in an entrance hall. They see 4 doors and some stairs leading up. There is also a suit of armour just by the stairs. Now, with this, they decide to ignore the doors and head straight up the stairs. But first, that suit of armour gives them a bit of concern. They're worried that it is, in fact, going to be some sort of enchanted armour that comes to life or what have you. So they use detect magic spell, and it appears to be an ordinary suit of armour. Now, they don't examine it, so I don't go any further. But what is here is there is a gold coin stuck behind the armour. Now, if they'd have tried to get that gold coin out, it is just an ordinary gold coin. But there would be a very high chance that that suit of armour would just collapse, making the noise and awakening the household. They bypass that and head upstairs. As they head upstairs, they sort of creep up the stairs slowly, and out of one of the there's 4 more doors up here, and out one of the far doors it opens, and a sleepwalking young lad comes out of the room, walks round the upper hallway to a back room, and then makes his way back. All the time our players just freeze and don't do a thing and let this happen. With that, they've got some information. That door is not the room they're looking for. They try the 2 doors nearest them. Here there is, they hear the sound. They try the 2 doors opposite. The far door opposite the room where the boy came out of, they listen in, they can't hear anything. The next door down, they listen, they can hear a man snoring. So they ascertain that must be Kopu's room, so they ignore that. They've worked out that the remaining door is the room where they saw the 3 barred windows from outside, and so they try that, and they are pretty much on fire on their guesswork on where they should be. They pick that lock and open it, and they find themselves in a large study. A wooden desk stands against the wall. There's a bookcase, some plush looking chairs. Above the desk hangs a life-size portrait of a middle-aged man, most likely Kopru. And here indeed the windows to this room are barred. And the first thing that a Nerophil does is look at that picture. Walker searches around the room and spies a short bow and a quiver with 1 arrow, so that pips his interest. And near Gelfenwith searched the desk, I believe, and find some paperwork. Let's go through that first. So anyway, it's just normal paperwork involving deals that Kopru's been involved with, but nothing related to the Eye of the Basilisk. There's a silver paper knife worth about 5 gold pieces there as well. There's a bottle of brandy in the room that Ranger takes as he's making his way to the quiver. The arrow is curious. It has a brass tip on the end and doesn't look like it could be much use in combat. He takes it anyway. Searching the picture, behind the picture is a safe. This is probably what they're looking for. They think this is the location of the Eye of the Basilisk. There is indeed 2 keyholes, a left and a right. They ascertain the key they got with the L on is the left key. The other key they probably guessed that Kopru's got, so they're going to use the left key and pick the right lock. This all has to be done at exactly the same moment. So what they do is Gelfenwith takes the key and uses that, and our roguish characters assist each other on picking the lock to give themselves advantage, which is good because the lock would give them disadvantage because it's a real hefty safe. They I think they fail the first time and succeed the second time, but all that happens is each time they fail, time has moved on. Obviously there is a time limit. We're now sort of around midnight, so they've got a few hours to go, so they think they're on the home stretch. Inside is 20 gold pieces, a ledger of Kopru's accounts for the past 2 months, and some other business related items. There's also a letter from a Mr. Nibbs, the cartographer, addressed to Kopru that mentions there is a map of the Barrow Hill property, showing where the Barrow Hill property is in his offices in the Merchants Guild. They kind of groan at this because they decided not to explore any of the other rooms, but they're now at this point as well beginning to realise that the Eye of the Basilisk is not here. It's in this place in Barrow Hill. So that is probably where they're going to need to go. The ledger shows that Corporal built some land on Barrow Hill not long ago, and so they're like, the eye's not here, we've got to go to Barrow Hill. They do a history check, or a check anyway, to see if they know where, if they've heard of Barrow Hill. They have. It's to the east, outside of town. This is where they do the history check to get some history. That it was it's a hills called the Barrow Hills, and it gets its name because in the Barrow Hills there is an ancient barrow there, obviously, and about 100 years ago there was a mansion built there, but it burnt down to the ground and has remained ruined ever since. House is quite near the gatehouse, and they've got to get out here. And all I've written here is on my sort of conversion of this: the gates are guarded. The players will need a way out. The players will need a way out to get past unnoticed. Effectively, that is it. I've got no sort of solution to this whatsoever, other than that. Their solution is to use the grapnel hook and rope and swing it from the rooftop to get near as possible to the wall, as it were. Grapnel hook the wall and then sort of climb across using the rope. There are two sleepy guards down below on the ground themselves. So with this, there is dexterity checks involved, and there are stealth checks involved. And Aerofoil passes his with flying colours, and in fact does a bit of showmanship, as show off ship really, as he climbs the rope across, sort of tight walking it, and challenges the ranger to beat that. Gelfenwith goes next, and she goes straight across. Just no showmanship, just makes it. Ranger tries to beat an Aerofoil at his own game, and there is a failure here which alerts the guards. Now, they haven't seen exactly what and where yet. They've just seen the guards. So with this, they need to come up with a plan quick, and I think it involves minor illusions and so forth, just to distract the guards and make sure they don't look up. Homunculus comes involved. Otherwise, it would be all over for them. With that, Ranger sheepishly continues his climb across the rope, and they make it outside the city walls into the open air. There is no random encounters here. It's just a straight "you're now at Barrow Hill" type of situation here. Weird. Time in real life was actually marching on by this point, so I wanted to get the I didn't want to make it a two-parter, and so they find themselves at Barrow Hill. It's what they find is they come to a overgrown garden that they find themselves in. In the middle of the overgrown garden there is a statue. To one side there is the remains of the house, which is pretty much just a blackened patch with an old porch just left there. They can see the barrow and a standing stone in the distance. Now, if you watch the footage here, what I set up here isn't representative of the distances, the scale of it. This is more just abstract, so just showing you roughly where they are, so the players can put their models on where they want to be, rather than, you know, sometimes it's good to do that rather than just set up the whole table. Now, if they walked diagonally across to the house, they would get a grabgrass encounter, but they don't do this. They actually skirt round. They avoid that middle bit, that overgrown garden, like the plague for some reason. Perhaps they're getting onto my widey plans, but yes, so they avoid that. They quickly examine the house, patch around the house, but not too closely. If they put their hands in the ash, they would have felt that for some reason it's still hot, it's still burnt, and they would have taken a bit of fire damage. They don't. They realise there is not a lot here, and decide to then go back to the fountain. Here they can see that it is indeed a fountain, not a statue. The statue is on the fountain. Now, the water of the fountain contains quippers, basically piranhas. So if they're just waded across, they would have got eaten. They don't. They end up sending the homunculus and Nudicross to see what's what, and they say they can see that the statue's an archer without an arrow. It's a brass statue without an arrow. That pips Ranger's interest, as he's got a brass tipped arrow. Perhaps they need to put that in the archer. They try this. They give it to Newt, who flies it across, puts it in the archer, and nothing happens. It's then that he notices that there is an inscription. So they get the homunculus to read it. Newt's not very good at reading words. And it says, "My enemies are heart of stone. I never let my arrow fly. Yet when an archer looses my arrow home, the gates of death yawns wide." So they examine the barrow, thinking, okay, they've got to get into the barrow, maybe there's an entrance there, and they realise that there's no entrance, it's just a solid mound. And then tipped off with this information about the statue and the inscription, they realise that it's got to be something to do with a secret entrance and maybe turning the statue or whatever. They've tried putting the arrow in the archer, that doesn't do anything. I've changed this puzzle from the original book. Originally you did change the statue just to make it aim at the standing stone, but for this I actually wanted to get the players involved a bit more, and I wanted to get Ranger involved a bit more, so he's got to shoot the arrow at the standing stone. How do they know they've got to do this? Apart from that cryptic inscription, they examine the standing stone, and Anerophil finds some thief cant inscribed on it, and it's the thieves cant for victim or target. So with all this information, they begin to dawn them. They've got to shoot the standing stone, that's the target, with the brass arrow. The archer's arrow's got to be shot, loosened by someone else. So with that, they've got to retrieve the arrow, which is simple enough. They've got some little flying creatures to do it, and Ranger makes the shot, and as he makes the shot, the illusion is dispelled and they find the entrance to the barrow. Which point they descend into it, and they quickly come to a chamber that has 3 large stone slabs, which are obviously doors. They try moving them and they do not budge. They then look around and they notice there are some small holes either side of each stone slab. In there they can sort of see a lever. It's big enough to poke your hand in, but none of them do it because it's obviously a trap. They try it with one of Ranger's arrows, and as they do it, poisonous darts, fire out into the arrow. So they try again, more darts, and they push the mechanism on the other side, but it just doesn't do anything apart from loosen darts. In fact, it's really not a trap as such, because that's what the mechanism is designed to do. When you push that button, it's designed to release darts, so it's not an actual trap. That is its job. It doesn't open the door. It's not there so it doesn't open the door. It just doesn't open. That's what it does. So they wouldn't have found, if they searched traps, they wouldn't have found it. They're now at a loss because that doesn't open or remove the stone slabs. So they're looking around, and it's then that there is some smaller boulders around the floor and wall. Those they can move, and which they do, and each one of them is a crawl space into another room. So they send Newt in first to look in there, and the first one they come to is there is a plinth in the centre of the room with an armoured skeleton resting on top, and piles of bones all round. Now they obviously know this is not good. As soon as they go in there, the skeleton will come to life, and probably the bone piles will form skeletons. They ignore that. The other one contains a guard ogre, a zombie ogre standing guard. They sort of ignore that, though for some reason that pips Anerophil's interest. I don't know why. I still don't know why. Ahead, it is a passage, and at the end of the passage is a newly installed iron door with a hole beside it, and there is a key in this alcove that Newt sees. But there is also this sort of metallic-y scorpion, lifelike scorpion above it. This is obviously a trap, and this is newly fitted. The other rooms are sort of undisturbed, well, undead in there. So to me that was the clue to go forward. Perhaps I got this a bit wrong, but Anerophil decides to go to the ogre path first. But also on the correct path as well, there is some thief cant that says, "Here lies the midnight rogue," revealing a secret hidden door as well. But he ignores that as well. Just fixates on this ogre path. He dispatches the ogre, of course, and then makes his way forward further in that way, and comes across a room with a burning torch that casts long shadows. This is in fact shadows if they had gone in there. At this point, Galfenwith is like, no, this is the wrong way. I'm not going this way. We've got to go down the middle path. This is the way that Copel would have gone. This is the installation. This is the correct way. I don't know if Anerophil was thinking perhaps that way is going to be traps and he's going to look for an alternative way around. I don't know, but she and Walker decide to go the middle path. It's then around looking where Anerophil had found the feast can't. The Walker searches for a secret door, and sure enough, it opens into a passage. Now, here is the tomb of the Midnight Rogue, the titular Midnight Rogue that I sort of put in. Now, his body, his leather armour has rotted away, but there is two items that haven't rotted, boots and bracers. Now, during our past few games, Walker and Anerophil have asked at one point could they have particular items. Walker wants braces of archery, naturally, so that's what these are, and Anerophil had sort of ordered them from Jasper, but I thought I'm going to make it so Jasper can't get hold of these boots of Misty Step that I sort of wrote based on the Misty Step spell. There is a risk and reward with them where every time you use, you can only use them twice a day, they recharge, give you 2 charges per day, and every time you use them you've got to roll a 1d6. If you roll a 1, the magic dispels and they just become ordinary boots. 2 to 5, it works as the Misty Step spell, and a 6, it works as a Misty Step spell, but you also can do 1d4 force damage at the end, just for a bit of fun. Now, so yeah, as soon as you can, Anerophil is still over by the Shadow Room, deciding whether he's going to go in, looking at if he can douse that fire. And it's there he's realising now, as the player, not as the character doesn't know, but the player suddenly realising, oh my goodness, that's where my boots are. But Ranger takes them up, and this is where is there going to be honour amongst thieves comes in from the beginning bit. He takes the boots, he doesn't wear them, he just puts them, he just begins to carry them. Now, at this point, it looks like there is honour amongst thieves, but perhaps they can deal with it afterwards. Next, they carry on going forward to this iron gate. Anerophil is now rushed back into the room, he joins them, and they decide to go forward. There is a quick dexterity check to grab that key before, and it does. As soon as I grab the key, the Scorpion Tail will come down and hit you in the wrist, a bit like that sort of thing in the 80s Flash Gordon movie with James Bond. I forget his name now. The James Bond character. Oh, that's going to bug me. Why does my brain always go blank in these sessions? He's also in Hot Fuzz. Anyway, yes, let's carry on. Remind me in the comments. Yeah, so that happens. They get the key and unlock the room and find themselves in an empty room. Now, there's some doors going off, which I ascertain are probably lead up to the other passages to the left and right from when they first entered. They ignore that and come into another room, which is a massive, massive chamber with the ceiling going up into the darkness. Now, Anerophil and Galfenwith are sort of looking around the floor. They can see 3 other doors up ahead. And there is a chest in this room as well that they can sort of see right at the end. While they're looking at this, no one's looking up into the blackness above them except for Walker, who looks up and sees beady eyes crawling down to him. Luckily, that means they don't gain surprise, the monsters that come in. But yeah, what it is a shroud spider. You may remember this from the B10 adventure, and loads of giant spiders. And a bloody battle happens, literally quite bloody. At this point that Walker decides he's not doing enough, he should be doing more damage even with his archery, and we've sort of neglected his ranger abilities really in our game, which we're going to sort out next time. He doesn't have any spells. Ranger has spells where their damage comes in, so we're going to look into that for him next time. They dispatch the spiders and open the chest. It's trap locks, so they disable it. Inside, they're thinking this is the Isle of Basilisk. It's not. It's just a foot round obsidian disc. Bit disappointed, they try the door. They decide just the way to do this is to go straight forward now. They've clocked on that the left and right have nothing to do with this whatsoever. They open the end door and inside there is a black plinth, and on top of it is a massive yellow gem, the Eye of the Basilisk. Now it is being bathed in this brilliant light coming from above. They obviously realise this is a trap, as most of this adventure has been locks and traps. And so what they do is they realise they need to hold the obsidian disc over the light, and so they can get the gem. It takes 2 people to do this. I don't know why Walker doesn't get involved in this, I forget now, but it's Gelfenwith. I think because Honour Amongst Thieves is beginning to fade and the Nerophil doesn't trust him, so he gets Gelfenwith and him to hold the obsidian disc while he himself tries to pick the gem. It's doable, but it makes it more tricky rather than it should be a 3-person job. 2 people holding the disc, 1 person grabbing this massive gem. But yeah, I guess the Honour Amongst Thieves is beginning to fail. But he gets the gem and we get back to town. There's this lovely moment where we're celebrating and we're talking, sort of relaying what happened to oh, that's the other thing, yes, I should point out before we get back to town. In this room, the gem room, again, no one's looking up. Walker is probably the most observant one here. He looks up and he spots this goat-headed symbol, which he recognises from the Night of Blood, from the cultists from the Night of Blood. And that makes him think about the ghoul encounter from early in the evening, which was a bit weird, ghouls being in a big city. And now he's beginning to think about that and this new temple that had opened from the last session that he'd heard about, that Brass was involved with. And now he's beginning to wonder, is this the start of some sort of new, the cult of Orcus beginning to infiltrate this area, this city? And he puts that to the back of his mind, something to deal with at another time. We go back to the Thieves Guild, their celebration, Ranek's sort of congratulations. It's now that Anerophil reveals that it was he that dispatched Volpine so he could take his place. He gets that Volpine was the master thief of the harbour district, so they can take that over. So that means what we're going to be doing in the next few sessions is probably setting that up, going and doing little quests and setting up Thief Guild quests. We're going to be running some urban encounters, I think, from now. So I'm working on that. That's what I'm doing. I'm creating some urban encounters. Luckily, Professor Dungeon Master from the Dungeon Craft channel is doing such a thing with his Revolve Society, so I'm taking inspiration from that, really, which is great. Thank you there, Professor DM, for that. And it's this, there's a passing comment that Anerophil makes to Walker, to Ranek, about, I was after some boots, but this so-and-so took them from me. And this is where the Honour Amongst Thieves falls apart, because Walker would then turn around and say, well, I was just about to give them back to you, but with that comment, I'm keeping them. They're still friends. They're still friends, but there is now a serious rivalry between them. And with that, that is our sort of 5.5 hour game over. Obviously, with these waffle sessions, I condensed them a bit. But yeah, as I said, if you're interested in seeing this play out for real, head over to the Patreon. But that is it for this one. Until the next video, guys, stay safe, take care, bye-bye.